So my friends and I have this group, we call it the Smoke Squad, and we get together once a month, we smoke a cigar, and we just kind of talk about life, business, money, and every time we meet, we all leave like feeling, I don't know, empowered. There's something I think powerful when you're around people that just have good conversation. And so we're gonna do a piece today, and it's gonna be about finance. And it is Brian Atlas, and he's the president of Dyrdek Machine. Drama, who's the CEO and founder of Young and Reckless. P-Rod, who, greatest skateboarder ever, entrepreneur, investor, everybody knows P-Rod. And then Malto is in our group, but Malto wasn't able to make it today. And so we're gonna kind of just have a free conversation about money, mistakes we've made. And so we hope this educates, blesses, gives everybody watching a new outlook, and hopefully benefits your process of succeeding with your finance. When you were young, did you have like a vision or an example of what you thought success was? Like, you know, if I have a car, if I have a Ferrari and a mansion, that's what being wealthy is. Did you have a vision for?
Young Jeezy, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was my favorite artist. He was my real, like, I remember Young Jeezy, and I remember Kanye College Dropout, where he was essentially saying, like, who cares if I don't have any investments? I got a Jacob watch. And that was my model. You know, like, I got a nice watch, fuck it, it's on loan, whatever, it's on layaway. Yeah. And I was like, all right, that's it. That was for me.
That's interesting, because look at the evolution Young Jeezy has gone through, and how he is now. And like, I think you had a lot of evolution in that similar
We're
way.
very similar, me and Jeezy.
You guys are very similar.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
What about you?
Jeezy's one of my favorites from then, and especially his evolution. I don't know. I had a vision, that I just wanted to live a really awesome life. Yeah, always, you know, when you're a kid, the word mansion sounds just so, I want a mansion, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you want a big ass house. When I was really young, I didn't really care about cars and stuff. I just knew that I wanted to have all the cool shit I ever want and not have to think twice about it.
More not having to worry about money.
I guess now you can put it like that, but when you're thinking from a kid perspective, I wasn't thinking about like not having to worry about money. I just wanted to be able to, like, when I went over to other friends' houses and they had like whatever the latest thing I was into, or a big trampoline in the backyard, or whatever the cool shit that they had that I didn't, I was like, I want to be able to just have that.
Yeah.
Like when I grow up, and just have just all the cool toys or whatever that I wanted. So I guess I didn't think about it in the mature terms of, I want to be financially secure, but essentially that's what I want it to be.
Yeah.
For me, it was the pro skateboarders that were first showing that they had success. So it was Dyrdek, it was Paul. I saw Paul with a G-Wagon when I came out to LA once.
That was Rob's.
That's hilarious. But Colin McKay, I knew he had like a Canadian distribution company. Danny Way, all the DC guys, because they had the DC rings, you know, the Plan B chain. It was like, okay, there's pro skateboarders in that category that are making like money. And I knew that some of them started having like nice houses, and that in high school, that was like my version of success. Like these guys in LA that made something of skateboarding and started to show it a little bit more than you used to see earlier, because you didn't used to see that early on.
Dude, totally. And was there a moment where you got to a point you're like, oh my gosh, like I did it? Like, was it a watch, or was there this staple purchase where you're like, this is what I'm talking about, this is success?
For me, I feel like the goalpost is always moving, so I haven't felt that yet. I remember Paul said that to me back in the day, like you never really feel that feeling. Yeah. So I haven't felt that yet. So, you know, I got to pass on feeling that vibe.
Sorta. I mean, I think in very brief moments. Like, I think that when I was 26, I bought a Lamborghini. And if you want to talk about proper money management. And it was so ridiculous, even to me, that I was doing it. Like, the whole process was like, all right, I guess I'll take it for a test drive, and then like, okay, I guess show me the paperwork, and then like, I guess I'll take it. And I think driving out of the dealership in Beverly Hills in a Lamborghini by myself after just signing paperwork, I was like, okay, so this is it. But that lasts for a day until you wake up the next morning. You're like, oh my God, I'm screwed. What did I do? You know what I mean? And then you have these like roller coaster of emotions. And then the other day I was listening once again to Kanye's College Dropout, and I was thinking it was interesting how if the young me that was like probably 17 when that came out heard him rapping about watches and stuff, and now my perspective on those same watches or those same purchases is so like attainable or doable. I thought to myself, wow, that would really trip me out to think that I would ever get to that point. But in very brief moments, I've never had this like lasting comfort of I made it or I'm financially successful.
So you would say that these, I mean, dude, maybe not everybody, but these purchases that we kind of maybe idolize or look at as like, if I just get that, like it's just going to feel so good. And then when you get it, it doesn't feel like what you thought it was going to. The buildup was kind of not there.
No, and I think that's the age-old thing that like for some reason everyone who has a lot of things tell you that happiness isn't in the things, and everyone who doesn't have the things wants the things. It's just one of those things about being a human being. Like you almost have to do it to understand that that's not it. And I get it, and I don't know why we can't just learn from hearing it and believing that that's true, but we can't. It's like your parents telling you not to drink. You know, you're like, let me try it out, and then I'll tell you. But no, it's not. You have these moments. You have these quick moments of feeling like, all right, this must validate it. It's almost like it's a validation. It's like, I have the key to a Lamborghini in my pocket. That must mean I'm rich. That must mean I'm whatever. That lasts, like I said, a week until you start thinking like, I have this added responsibility. I have this blah, blah, blah. It just, it doesn't last.
I love the progression or evolution of Jay-Z on that point. Like all the old photos that you see, the memes, like when Jay-Z first came out, it was all huge, necklaces, and he was super flashy, and now you look at him worth more than anything, and he's just wearing nothing.
Yeah, but here's also the interesting like trajectory that I would say about, I mean, I feel it myself, not that it's anywhere near like what I'm gonna say about Jay-Z. Even Rob, who, my cousin and someone that we looked up to for a long time as kids, has went through this. There's something about like Jay-Z had to go through, like Jay-Z being Big Pimpin' Jay-Z is part of what made Jay-Z Jay-Z. And like if he was never Big Pimpin' Jay-Z, I don't know that we would look at him as 444 Jay-Z.
Because if he never scratched the itch.
Yeah,
it's
if he came out
itch.
and it wasn't Big Pimpin', it was Big Saving, and it was Jay-Z at like 25, Big Saving, like let me talk like financially responsible, you'd be like, get out of here. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's an interesting thing to look at when it comes to money, because I do think there's an element of experiencing the BS of money and also of portraying success that is important somewhere. I just don't know exactly. Can't tell you the recipe. I can just tell you there's some value there. You know?
So we all kind of got to where we are on different paths. Brian was the only one out of us four to go to college. Paul and I skateboarded. Drama, we all share skateboarding in common, but Drama started a business, and then we got here. What was your original idea of how to make money? Like, did you have this concept of if I do this and this and this, that will lead to me earning?
So for me, I think I read a lot of books about like the entertainment industry and the sports industry, and I would say I skewed towards like thinking deal making was the thing. Like these big deal makers made money and they helped land deals for their clients, whether they were actors or athletes, or they sold companies. And I used to read books about Wall Street private equity takeover guys or investment bankers. So I always thought deal makers and power brokers was the thing. So I always thought about if you're not like putting deals together or you're not like a closer, then you're maybe not going to be a high earner. So it's kind of something I always gravitated towards even when I was younger. That's kind of my take on it.
And then how did, from the point of view starting to make money, was it different than you originally thought?
Well, I think in business, it does reward people that know how to ultimately close deals and, get something across the finishing line and know how to, make a true partnership. I think that served me really well with Street League. Rob, working with him, he's an incredible, salesperson, and he can make a vision, come across the room better than anyone. So seeing that at the earliest age, like right out of college, and then getting my feet wet with working with DC, Monster, Nike, and learning how to like work with brand partners, I had a very quick learning curve on doing that. And it's something now with on the venture side and building brands, raising capital, helping portfolio companies like grow revenue with different, sales accounts. It's something that it's been reinforced that it's a skill set that is, highly rewarded. So not to say that it's something that everyone needs to be really great at, but if you are really great at that, it does help tremendously.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? What percentage would you say of actually learning how like the world works and how to make money came from real world experience or your own sort of travels and came from college? Because you went to USC, which is a good college. When I was younger, I imagined that the moment you walked out of USC, you had all the keys. You just had to go do it. Like, what's the reality?
Well, there's a nuanced answer for me because at USC, I was debating whether or not to be like a finance guy and chase an investment banking or a consulting role, which is very common, like a Big Four consulting firm or investment bank at Wall Street. But I decided to be in the entrepreneurial center, and that decision led me to writing business plans as a side hustle, which led me to learn their version of entrepreneurship, is now in hindsight, that was kind of an outdated version, which led me to writing the business plan for Rob on Street League. So I took a very specific road in college that allowed me to get there. But if I went the other route, it would have totally been a way different experience. And I would say I more lucked into this position of being, ready for these types of roles because I made that decision to focus on entrepreneurship.
But I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with you, you're one of the, I think, rare people that have a pretty clear path on what they want to be, where even you talking about like your view on making money, at least from what my view was how to make money, you're light years ahead of me, like on putting it together, reading books on finance and doing deals and then wanting to go into the finance industry. I felt like you went to school to better where you already knew you wanted to go, where a lot of us, well, not us, but a lot of people go to college to figure it out, and then the experience potentially is much different.
And that
than
was
yours.
that is true because I went to LA. I moved from the East Coast to Los Angeles because of my perception that sports, skateboarding, entertainment industry, all these things were overlapping in Los Angeles, and that was really why I came out there. Yeah. So it was something that was in my mind from the outset. But skateboarding at the time did have such a big driver in it because it was the center of skateboarding in the world to me, and where all the businesses were associated with skating, so that was part of it. But yeah, it was early on. That was, middle school, high school, thinking about that stuff.
Light years ahead of me. So what about you, Drama? Coming from Ohio, skating, and then Rob being Rob and seeing kind of who he became, did you look at him and go, okay, that could be a path in which I create success? Or how did you view it being the young Chris Pfaff in Ohio?
Yeah, it's hard for me to even, like, to me it feels so messy, and it feels, it feels like I'm still sort of refining this thing. So this is the best way I can describe it. When I was young, I always wanted to just be successful, whatever that really meant, right? Like starting from like yard sales to like flipping iPods at my school to like filming and editing. Like I used to film and edit my little cousin playing football and go sell it to the parents, DVDs of their games the next week so they could watch the tape with their, just like any little scheme, but I don't really know where it was all leading at the time. Then I moved out here. Obviously I looked up to Rob a lot. I learned a lot from him, and I was always sort of scheming there. Like even when we started working on the first TV show for MTV, the first thing I did was started like, I'm going to be a music producer, and I'm going to like finesse like my beats in all of the background of all the shows.
I forgot you did that. You're getting paid off your music.
Yeah.
I forgot.
And I still
that was
get checks.
Genius back then. Yeah. How did I forget that?
Yeah,
you
so
had all the music publishing deals from the show. Wow.
Yeah. So I learned like how to sign up for ASCAP and like how to get royalties, and like then I started like, okay, well if I'm doing it for Rob and Big, maybe I could do it for other shows. And I started trying to meet music supervisors. And then by the time we got into Fantasy Factory, I decided I was going to make a production company because I was so busy with shooting and all this stuff. I could sign producers to me. We could have a production company, and we could I could use my leverage from the show and my relationships, use all these whatever. And so, but that failed. But the point is, I was always trying to finesse the next thing, and then how do I leverage? I think finessing and leveraging, there's a through line, you know? Same thing with Young and Reckless. I saw, if I'm being truly honest this long after the fact, I saw Big Black make printing money from Big Black clothing. And I thought, yes, Big Black is obviously a way bigger star than me and way bigger known than me, but like the actual business of what Big Black clothing is, I could do. And I think I could actually do better in the sense of a name that's more universal, build a brand. Like I see the flaws here. And then I saw Rob obviously going from making like whatever he was making, 100 grand a year from DC to like millions and millions. And what Rob, the brand, did for DC. The idea for Young and Reckless came up, okay, this is I can do this. I can have a little bit of DC, a little bit of Big Black clothing. I can use the show as leverage. Same thing, leverage. I went and found business partners who knew how to actually make the clothes and do all that shit so that I could turn it on tomorrow and leverage a business out of that. That worked. A lot of the other things didn't. But I think that I was always just chasing, and I still am today. Like, I have new businesses and new things I'm working on. I'm doing the same thing, just at a more advanced level where I get to skip a lot of the mistakes because I've already made them. But all I'm trying to do is find opportunity, leverage it, and have these big wins, you know. I'm still very much the same person, just with a lot more of learning the stupid mistakes, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, for you, like, so because we've known each other so long, and I'll kind of tell everyone in this, when we started skating, Paul was very, I mean, similar to you, he was very focused on where he was headed and kind of, you saw this ambition that Paul wanted to be great at skateboarding. But once we got to the point where we started getting sponsors, you were, I mean, it freaked me out in the beginning because you looked at skateboarding and the industry of it as, okay, who can I align myself with that can take me to the next level? Where in the beginning, I was so worried about image and kind of what people thought. And the thing that really threw me off is when you quit S to ride for Nike and you had a skateboarder interview and you kind of said it like point blank in there, like, look, man, these companies don't care about me. Like, you know, they sell this loyalty idea, but at the end of the day, like, this is a business. And you were so, I think, ahead of the time on looking at skateboarding as your, I don't want to say stepping stool, but you looked at it as, how can I do this and take myself here, where all of us were kind of stuck here. Where did that come from? Was there a mentor or somebody that you looked at in a different industry that took that approach?
Not early on. So my idea of how to get rich as a kid was just like, get really fucking good at something, have a talent for something, and use that to make a career out of it. And the reason I had that is because I had the example of my dad. My dad was doing it, you know, he's a comedian. At the time, especially in my early years, he was making a ton of money. And so I saw that he was doing something he really loved to do. And I equated loving what you do and earning money. Those things seemed like they were attached to me. So, you know, I had all these little hobbies, but every time I got into a hobby, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be the best at this, and this is what I'm gonna do. And then I would lose attention span for that, and oh, this is what I'm gonna do, and eventually I found skateboarding, and it was the one thing I never lost. Nothing else ever took my eye and said, oh no, that's the new thing. So when I started skating, it was the same mentality, like, I have fun trying to be my best. Yeah. So I didn't know the culture of skateboarding was like, whatever. That's, at the time, you're just a kid, you're just brand new. I want to try to be my best. I want to learn all the hardest tricks, blah, blah, blah. So that was my mindset. So I got in it, wanted to be great at it. I saw guys like Costin. I got, ended up meeting Kareem, and to me, they seemed rich. To me, they seemed like, oh, they're doing it. So you can do it with skateboarding. That's great. And so I was like, I want to do it on the biggest and highest level possible. So that's just what I dedicated every day to, is like, I didn't want to go to school. I already knew where I wanted to go, and I knew what my classroom was, and I just attacked it. And so then when I met people like my first agent, Cersei, I saw that she was managing Costin, so I met her. boom, she brought opportunities. Oh, we can negotiate deals, get you better deals, because I didn't know nothing about negotiating. I was just going to say yes to any deal I got. And she really, you know, went in and fought and used the talent I was able to build and the attention I was able to build with it and leverage it into bigger deals. And so, yeah, I wasn't worried about people telling me, oh, but that's not cool. Like, oh, like, you know, I heard that a lot with certain core sponsors that I had. Like, nah, man, just keep it skate, just keep it skate. It's like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna keep it skate. Like, don't worry about that part. But, you know, I'm trying to build something here.
So where was the desire then? Because you're one of the few skaters that has owned and currently owns multiple businesses. You've been investing in things for a long time. Where was the desire or foresight to go, I'm going to multiply what I have and use that to leverage, or however you want to say it, to the next place?
Well, at some point I started really realizing, like, okay, there is a time frame to this. Like, I can only do this at a certain level for so long and have, you know, strong earning years for so long. And I remember early on, my uncle, and he used to live with me, he would tell me that when I first started getting money, he would be the one saying, like, you should save it, you know. And the early first financial advice I remember getting from him was, from his self, he'd like to save up a year's worth of salary in the bank so that if anything ever went wrong with your job or career, you have a year to figure out your life without having to alter. So I remember that being like the first, like, oh, that's a good idea, that's smart, like, have a cushion. And then, you know, seeing Kareem and what he was doing, being close around him, and then I really started getting heavy, you know, through Kareem, I got influenced by hip hop, right? And then I, you know, found a love for Jay-Z's music, and as a kid at first I listened to it entertainment, like, yeah, it sounds cool, it's dope. But then when you wait, what is he saying right there? Oh, okay. So then I really started looking at his career, how his career was built, and what he did leveraging his talent as a musician. I was like, okay, I can use that template. Like, I have a talent that right now is bringing me in finances, and now I can just look at his blueprint and his model and try to do that in my world. And so that's basically what made me start to, like, look into doing that stuff. And that's kind of what I still try to do, because I don't have a traditional education on it, and I don't spend a lot of time, like, sometimes I'll listen to you guys talk, I'll be like, damn, I have no idea what these guys are talking about right now, like talking very sophisticated and smart, because you guys are in business every day, and it's like training. You guys are doing business training, learning in real life, but I'm still here in the skate side of things, still focused on, like, keeping the talent strong and going. So I was like, all right, well, if I don't have that knowledge, nor do I have, like, the desire to get in the trenches of doing it, I need to figure out how to put my money in places that it'll grow. I can understand enough to ask the right questions, work with certain experts that will help me strategize to get there, so that whenever my time earning and skateboarding is done, the money's already operating. That's why, for me personally, passive income is very important, because after this, if I don't want to do nothing else, then I don't want to be in a position where I have to do something else.
Yeah.
I do, because I have desires and I find joy in doing other things, but I just want to know that that side of things, my lifestyle doesn't have to alter because my talent deteriorates.
Yeah. It's funny, man, because I don't know if you guys felt this, but whenever you talk, you know, you say how, like, yeah, sometimes you guys are, like, talk so sophisticated, but I don't know if you realize how much wisdom comes out of what you're saying, even though you might not be using a technical term. But even in that, right, you talked about leverage, which is so powerful. You talked about creating passive income to basically cover you through your performing or peak performing years, right? And then also, like, I think we have this idea that we have to be masters at every element of everything. Right. But part of me feels like if you can understand the big picture concepts, then you could bring people in to manage the actual technical side of it. And I think you've done that your whole career. So don't shoot yourself down, man. I think that's huge.
I appreciate that. No, thank you.
Atlas, this was going to go specific to you. So for people, there might be a lot of people listening that don't understand venture capital, or don't know what venture capital is. Can you kind of explain what you're doing now?
Sure. So broadly, venture capital is when you seek outside investors to invest in a business that's not public. It's a private company. There's different stages of venture capital. Earliest stage could just be a concept. There's late stage venture capital, which is right before a company were to go public. So the varying levels are really wide ranging. Usually a venture capital fund is managing other people's money to invest that capital into businesses professionally. The same way that you're in real estate investment, this is just, investment into that, quote unquote asset class, the venture capital asset class. I'm specifically in a very unique category of venture capital, which is a venture creation studio. Basically, we build businesses with founders. So it's the earliest possible stage and it's the most hands-on possible stage. And, a lot of it is my business partner and Rob's vision around creating the Dyrdek machine is being the best possible co-founder for an amazing entrepreneur that may not have all the resources and ability to foresee the ways they can accelerate the process, add unfair advantages. How do you take a 10-year journey, make it 5 to a win? How do you, raise capital the right way, take on the right partners on brand development, financial modeling? There's all these mistakes that companies can make later on the journey that we think we can basically program out of the equation early on from the outset. So it's a very specific category of venture capital, but venture capital in and of itself is a category of private equity. Private equity is just how does dollars flow into any type of business privately. And there's many different models associated with it. There's many different ways people go about it. And in terms of professional money management, it's a asset class that traditionally performs very well. If you have really good people that you're leaning on to invest for you, it should outperform things like the S&P 500 or other safe ways to invest your money. But a lot of these funds, they do fail. They don't actually bring a return back to their investors. There's still a ton of risk. A traditional venture model is basically hoping that a portion of their portfolio become successful and the other ones can maybe break even or fail. So they're not really betting that all of the businesses that they back will be successful. With Dyrdek Machine and what I do with Rob is we're trying to make fewer bets and be so hands-on as co-founders that it's not that model where, hey, we only need 2 to win. We want every single thing we do to be one of our businesses that we're fully invested in and trying to not take that quantity approach. So it's a subset of a broader model, but it's something that once you've had that entrepreneurial chapter, the way that I had with Street League, being a co-founder of Street League and running that for almost 10 years, once you kind of check the box of, okay, I know what it took to build something, it allows you to scale being an entrepreneur across many different businesses versus just doing one binary bet of, okay, I'm going to plow another 5 years into this. It's either going to work or not work, or maybe 10 years. It allows you to feel, you get to enjoy the feeling of creating something with somebody or helping them without, that big bet of this is either going to work or it's not going to work.
So one thing we talk about multiple things, but it's all centered around investing. And, there's the passive side, which Paul talked about, but there's also the active side, or kind of what you touched on as an entrepreneur. And, we and the majority of other people always talk about when you invest in yourself, that will always be your greatest return. So for the entrepreneurs that might be watching that might have an idea, and this is a question I get probably more than anything from entrepreneurs is, how do I get money? How do I raise money? What could you say to that kid who has an idea, things that they need to be working on so that they could go out and maybe find a Dyrdek machine or a VC to help them fund their dream?
So I'll return back to Dyrdek machine and our model in a second, but for a traditional venture firm or an angel investor, which is more, still to this day, more common than going right to a VC firm, like who do you know that would invest in you? Friends and families? Do you have, high net worth individual mentor that would take a shot on you? Do you know someone that invests in these types of businesses? I would speak to them first and just get a temperature check. Just have those initial natural conversations just to kind of get a gauge of where you're even at. And they might already say, you haven't thought this out, or the unit economics of this product won't even work, or what's your distribution? There might be a million questions we haven't even really thought through. And you should get that ball rolling, and then, make a vision deck of what it is that you're trying to solve, where do you envision your business to be going, the brand story, all the different things, the customer you think that you're going to market the product to. And then with that deck, you send it out to your network. And I'm obviously skipping over some things that might not be that easy for certain people. But with Dyrdek Machine, because we're confident we can add so much value in a lot of these pieces, we want to know what the product is. Like, what is your product vision? Do you have your proprietary white space you're hunting down? And for us, product quality is the unit economics between whatever it is that this entrepreneur has created. Is there, an opportunity in the market after we do professional research? So we'll have a meeting with a founder, really look at what he or her has developed, and then do some real professional research on the category, and then go back and really try to shape the business opportunity. So we're more of helping an entrepreneur along on that journey versus a venture firm, which is, hey, we want you to bring it to us already in an amazing place, and we're going to take a bet on you. Yeah. And so there's big differences there. The other thing I would add is not doing it yourself. Being an entrepreneur totally solo is difficult. Yeah. I know with St. Archer's, you guys, it was 4 of you, 3 or 4 from the very beginning. Yeah. And, all of you probably brought different things to the table. So that'd be another piece is if someone's by themselves, hey, are you cut out to do this all solo? Who could you do this with? And then, even better is when someone's already had some experience. Yeah. That every venture firm or even us, if someone's gone through it already and knows the journey, they're going to have so much experience already that's far and away a better opportunity for us. But it's not something that we have a strict guideline around, but it's better if you've kind of done it.
So the big takeaways that I heard.
Sorry, there's a lot there. Yeah.
There was a lot, but there was a lot of valuable information. So I just want to bring these takeaways. One, friends and family should always be your first round of finance because they know who you are and a lot of times want to support you. So that's the easiest way to get capital. 2, when they get to someone like you want to see that they've done their due diligence, that they have done the research on their product, and that they're not just coming to you with an idea. You want to see some type of plan, regardless if it needs to be buttoned up or not. You want to see a plan. And 3, investing, whether you're investing in people, in assets, in real estate, it's a team sport. Yeah. Everything is about building a team. So that was huge.
Quick question. Oh, sorry. What do you guys think about something like Kickstarter? Somebody started.
So there are all these amazing new platforms. Again, I have to carve out what I do with Dyrdek Machine as separate because we want to be the first check. We don't want other shareholders already in the mix, and we want to be able to be a co-founder. So separating ourselves, there's more tools than ever for an entrepreneur to develop traction out the gate. Kickstarter, GoFundMe. There's all these crowdfunding resources now where you can raise capital online through things like a Kickstarter. So these are all strategies. It's easier than ever to find ways to get your business off the ground, and they should be, explored if they fit, 100%.
One thing I want to add, because I think it's really important what Brian is touching on, and even the question that Paul asked, is just a little bit of I hope I don't come off like an asshole here. The one thing that I don't think enough people talk about is if you just cannot get anyone to help you out or give you money, there is a very good chance your idea isn't good or you're not explaining it well enough. And I think that we live in this time when a lot of people are conscious of raising money, just the fact that that even exists. And so a lot of people blame the fact that no one will give them money on why they aren't launching their thing. And it's almost given everyone this crutch. Oh, well, I don't have access to capital. I don't have blah, blah. A lot of the best ideas I've seen, people had to stop people from giving them money. Yeah. And I know that speaking for Brian and them, you should have all the questions that they're going to ask you answered. And we live in a time when access to information and your competitors and what size the market is all readily available. Also, you have the ability to go ahead and already build an audience. You have the ability to build a Kickstarter. You have the ability to gain traction and proof of concept, even if you don't have a product. that I just want to really push everyone. If anyone out there is thinking, gosh, I have this idea, it's the best idea ever, but no one will give me money. Just let me be the friend that has 1 second of brutal honesty with you to say, is it really that good, and how can you prove it? Because until you go through that exercise, it's blaming is not going to be good for you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. It's gonna be kind of a little bit different, but when I spoke with you a couple months ago, it was like in the midst of COVID, and I was like, "What's going on, man? How's everything?" And you were like, "Dude, I've been in the house, locked down, busy." You were doing so much, and so can you kind of explain how much time goes into running a business, or essentially working? How much of your time spent in making money?
So much. I mean, I almost want to make sure I give something of value here other than so much and so much more than you would expect. And I think that the biggest part that is more than you expect is just dealing with people and the frustrations of people. Like, I think the biggest misconception I had was that you surround yourself with good people, you pay them, and they do their job. And even good people, it's just still people. It's still miscommunications. It's still COVID happens and now everything is on video conference instead of there in person, and there's new challenges with that. It's still just managing people, and people drop the ball, and people forget, and people make mistakes, and that's not bad people, that's people. Sure, bad people do it way more often than good people do, but people do it. And I think when I was maturing and really running my business, I would say really to be honest, around 30 is when like I'm really starting to be every little detail. I think that's the part that I had to grow up the most and stop complaining, was just understanding that this is why it's hard. This is why making money is hard. This is why running a business is hard. This is why when people get rich, they invest in businesses, they don't run them. It's hard. And so get over the thought that this should somehow seamlessly run and this person should just do everything. That's, I think, the biggest part that I had to grow up and get over.
I am so glad I was hoping you were going here. So, we talk about entrepreneurship a lot because that's what us four are really into. But even if you're not an entrepreneur, we all struggle with this evolution of getting to the point of us not trading time for money, right? When you're an employee, you work for money. When you start a business, you spend so much time building the, what would you call it, team or company to get to a point to where then it can run without. You're trying to build to free up time, right? And you kind of touched on that, the rich don't run businesses, right? So it's this path of getting there, and I think a lot of us are kind of, which is really exciting and challenging at the same time, at the point of building the thing to step away from. But that is one thing I think is incredibly important for everybody to be thinking about, is how do you get to the point of freeing up time to where now you're giving money to give yourself time instead of giving time to bring in money.
Totally, and I think that you can practice that in baby steps today. Like, anyone here can open up a Robinhood account, put $100 in it. That is money making money. Doesn't matter if you made $20 last year. Learn the concept of money making money. But I will say that it also takes none of us are there. It takes a long time to get to the point where your money just makes all the money that you need, whether that's you're so intelligent as an investor or whatever. That's expert level. That's like real black belt karate shit. Like, we're all, as successful as some people see us, we're still in the trenches in the sense that the work that we do every day pays some of our bills. And so understanding those different levels and where the goal is, and know where you're shooting, and start to get yourself familiar with the idea of your money making money at the age of 16 will really help you when you're my age. Because I learned it a few years ago. You know what I'm saying? And I wish Young Jeezy had talked about that.
Well, it really helps with that process if you're actually enjoying what you're doing along the way. Because then it's just doesn't feel like you're like, man, I'm just looking forward to that day of walking away, although at some point that's what the goal is. But to find the joy, because you're gonna, like you said, it takes long. You're spending years, big chunks of your life, and a lot of it are your youthful years, trying to get where you're going. And you gotta remember, you don't want to wait to enjoy life at this distant time frame, you know, like it'd be really cool if you can enjoy it while you're doing it in the product, because it's still your life. You still want to enjoy these years, you know. It helps.
I have a question for you, and I'll start with this. If you don't want to answer this one, you do not have to. So very recently, you guys, I don't know if it was your first, but you guys had an exit where you sold a company, and you guys participated in capital gains. How different was that experience as opposed to the however long, 10 years you spent working for a salary and then experience the other side of selling businesses and money coming in, even at a different tax bracket? How was that experience?
So with our portfolio, we've had multiple exits now. We've been fortunate enough, and there have been different kinds of exits that result in a different type of feeling. So, our first exit was actually our only cannabis business, and a Canadian public company acquired this manufacturing style, supply side cannabis business that we were investors in. That wasn't a typical style company for us, so it didn't feel like we co-founded it. It didn't feel like we were hands-on in building it and hands-on and how that deal looked. So that was much more, a coach on the sidelines seeing like their players, win the game. That was more of that. Like, you're still amazingly excited. You feel like you were part of it, but you didn't really, do the work. When we've sold a company that we were co-founders in or founders on, that's like the ultimate feeling. That is, especially when it goes to an amazing partner and it's in the right hands with the right leadership to take it to the next stage. I feel it was like one of the best feelings I've ever felt in business. Yeah. On the capital gain side, yes, when you sell a company, there's all these, interesting different ways that you're taxed, and you learn, oh wow, this is how this works, and it definitely becomes like, oh, this is why so many people spend time on that side of business. Yeah. Selling a business that you're merely an investor in, it's a different feeling than selling a business that you founded or co-founded and helped the deal happen, which is an incredible reward. Yeah. And I would say it's something that I hope I experience many times over.
It will. But
yeah, and
me too.
The St. Archer example is an incredible version of that, where you guys are all in the same room, where you guys came up with a concept and took it to that journey, and so that type of exit, I think, is probably one of the best type of wins you can experience in business.
Yeah, and I will say too, it's for everybody watching. What's cool is, for us, we were on the side of coming up with the idea and trying to bring the idea to reality, but we also needed money to do that. And that's where the power of investing comes in, because we had to go out and tell our friends and family and then others about our idea, and then their money allowed us to create it. So there was a great importance in their money. And then our investors got to experience the benefit of them helping us get that company to an exit. So it's cool because everyone benefits in it when done right, regardless if you're in the trenches building or you put your money in to help the vision out. So it's really cool. And then on what you just touched on, when you sell a company, you get taxed on capital gains, and it is much less than what we are taxed on when we just, ordinary income. So that's a huge benefit as well. Is there somebody that how do you go about learning about money for you? Do you read books? Is it all experience based? Do you have an advisor or mentor?
All the above. I think for me, the process has been, and I'm not saying this is the best process by any means, because I still have like Skater from Ohio process, right? Is I read a lot of books, curious guy, listen to podcasts, all that stuff. Ask a lot of questions. I also think as I sort of got to new levels and had new amounts of money, all of a sudden these new people to help me sort of emerge. That's just how it happens. It's like as you gain more and as you start to want to learn about investing, and then you have an investment pay off, and then you just sort of hunt down better advice. It just happens that way. I don't know. And so for me, I've always tried to make sure that I'm not, that I'm leveling up the people I'm getting advice from, and also continuing to read and stuff like that and just understand. But I think this is an area where this is interesting because I still think of myself like 1,000,000,000% on the student side and not on the teacher side here. Because even last time we talked, I asked you guys to break down to me why the renting versus buying thing. You know, like I saw that clip go viral and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. Like just to give everyone an idea of where I'm at, like I'm still learning from my homies. So I think, yeah, all those different places. But kind of, it's one of those things, that's how life works. As you get smarter or richer or a bigger family or whatever, like the new teachers emerge, you know, and as long as you're a learner, you'll be fine.
That's huge. What about you?
Similar, all of the above, books.
And you learn, I mean, you're in the midst of it.
Yeah, but also the Commune Capital Instagram account.
Oh, we appreciate it.
No, I'm serious. You know, when some of those posts, I'm like, wow, that's like a very simple, fascinating way to break that down. But I'm constantly soaking up knowledge. You know, one book that actually I just recommended to someone that he did such a good job synthesizing all the best people in the space was Tony Robbins' Master the Game, Money Master the Game. It was before Dalio blew up with Principles, so he like really spent a lot of time with Dalio and all these other amazing, like the founder of Vanguard, and he went into index funds, and it was such a simple breakdown of, you know, your freedom fund, the money on the side that you can use for whatever, and you know, how do you get income to pay for your life, and investing in indexes rather than individual stock picking, portfolio diversification. Like he just went through all the major topics. And reading that book really then got me a lot more serious about the money and finance side and how to think about it. But you know, there's always new books coming out, and you know, I try to, you know, as Drama said, talk to my friends about the topic, and obviously lucky to see Rob like and his journey, because he's, you know, so far ahead in wealth creation. Like he's now thinking about his future generations and how does he protect like the, you know, what the Dyrdek run is for his great grandkids, and like that level is just on a whole other tier. And so the game is kind of endless, and there's so much to learn. So that's kind of it.
To Brian's point too, I would say if you're watching this and this far in, you obviously give a shit. I would say read that Tony Robbins book is incredible. Like shouldn't be $30 or however much it is. Really, and even I think it's the Richest Man in Babylon, which is sort of just the concept that we're talking about. Read those two books if you haven't already, and you'll be way ahead of the game. And if you don't read those two books, I would argue that you don't care enough. That'll be the test. You know what I mean?
I totally agree.
There's so much information out there.
There is. And I'm going to add two books to it. Richest Man in Babylon is amazing. Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first one for me that I went, wait, what? You know, so I think that's a really important one. And then a really good one is Tax-Free Wealth, which is a great book as well. So any one of those I think is gonna.
I'm not on the Richest Man in Babylon one. Never even heard of that.
Richest Man in Babylon is awesome.
It's like almost like a children's book.
Like a
for like just the concept of money.
Gotcha.
I've never read the tax-free.
It's financial principle, almost in parables. And in Babylonian times, they were known, like it's the first time I ever heard of the concept "pay yourself first" was in Richest Man in Babylon.
I love that. Really hit me when you posted that.
Yeah. So that's a great book. What about you?
Yeah, same thing as you guys. I learn all type of sources. I mean, anywhere from the music I listen to. YouTube has been huge for me. I just YouTube people. Even Instagram, I'll see a snippet and then I'll go find it on YouTube and watch it. But and then luckily, you know, financial advisors that I work with are always great. Just sitting here in the Smoke Squad discussions are always fantastic. But I can't pinpoint it on any one thing. It's just having the intent to learn how money works. Kind of just, I end up drawn to something at some point. My radar. It's like when you're a skater, right? Like you skated long enough that you can be driving the car and you can recognize a skate spot. Like, oh, boom! It stands out to you. So now I've been so interested in learning how finances work so much that I might come across something. Boom! It stands out to me. Oh, I need to, you know, get into this and listen and watch or whatever it is. So I can't really pin it down. I mean. I haven't read the Money Master of the Game book yet. I have it. I have read Richest Man in Babylon. I go the less traditional route. Like I like Think and Grow Rich. That's a great book to me, because that's not just about how to be rich financially. It's rich in whatever way you want it to be. I like those type of concepts of like visualizing and dreaming your way into something. Yeah, so that's kind of my...
All right, so let's, you know what, I was going to end it, but you said something that actually I think could be entertaining at the least for the audience. Us all being skaters and you touching on, like, I still have this skate lens and how I look at everything. Yeah. What do you think some of the qualities are that we've gathered from skateboarding that has helped us in business or investing? Yeah. And then what do you think some of the cons or challenges that we have to work through because we're skaters?
That's easy. So for me, I would say, plain and simple, the thing from skateboarding of being self-sufficient, not having a coach or a team, your own progress is completely up to you. There is help out there, there is advice, but you're self-sufficient and your work directly reflects your reward and your progress. Also, the progress is really, really slow. So like, you're not going out for a week and seeing a noticeable difference. Yeah. Like, you're talking years. So I think learning those principles, I think, are priceless. Yeah. I also think, like, one comparison I was going to make to P-Rod talking about skating, and my thing about better advice comes as you get better. If you're a skateboarder and you want to learn how to ollie, well, anyone can show you that. Your neighbor could probably show you how to ollie, right? Well, you progress, and you get to the point where you need to learn how to tray flip crooked grind. Let's say you're Paul. There are people that will show you how to do that. And when you get to that level, you'll find yourself amongst those people. But as long as you're always asking and learning and asking and learning and growing, as you grow and evolve, you end up surrounding yourself with better and better and better people. And before you know it, you guys are playing a game of skate, doing switch double tray flips. And you know what I'm saying? And you just, like, everyone has to have a little bit of confidence in, like, you don't be trying to learn how to kickflip and wondering where your Paul is to give you advice. Just take it in the steps. Yeah. The negative is I hate to say it, there's a lot of it. I think it wasn't cool to try at anything other than skateboarding. It was considered lame. The concept of selling out, I think, is fundamentally very, very flawed. I think there's 10% of it that's valuable. I think 90% is just a completely whack excuse for not facing fears or stepping out of the next boundary. And I think the us versus them mentality, very tribal, like skaters or fuck you thing, which, like, I've learned so much from all different types of people. I've had great experiences with all different types of people. Different types of people are awesome. Skaters are really cool, but they're not the only cool people. You know, there's all different types of cool niches and whatever that are great people. And it's so easy to stay in a bubble of fuck everyone but us and trying is lame. Think of how comfortable of a life you just made for yourself. But that's why a lot of skaters have trouble progressing into normal life. That's why I admire you so much. Like, you did the mental impossible. You know, it is. There's something about that identity as a skater and transitioning that, and especially you throw on the weight of the social media age where people are in your comments, fuck you, dude, why don't you skate anymore? Like, this financial shit's whack, whatever people are saying. You had to mentally be able to shift, and skaters especially, a lot of people, but skaters have a really hard time with that.
What do you think your biggest strength from what did skateboarding equip you with now?
Well, I think on the positive side, like the strength of community, when you have this ecosystem, you know, whether it's the businesses, the fans, the athletes, you know, when there's like a group, a faction, or some sort of tribe that all are energized around a single thing, that's an amazing thing. It's definitely tied together people all across the world and brought a lot of enjoyment to people. And so when you see that, it could be in all these different categories: music, other sports, you know, areas of health and wellness, you know, it could be in all sorts of different categories. That was one of the most amazing things about skateboarding, was that the community strength. You know, you could like run into a skater in Europe that you didn't know, strike up a conversation and skate with that person, and actually be fully normal, and then you could have a friend for life. Yeah. Like, that is something that has happened, would happen, will always happen. And then the downside of that same positive is when community is too fierce. You know, if you're not one of us, you're whack or whatever it is, and how it could kind of like eat itself when it's too much of your tribal mindset. But in entrepreneurship, when you have the ability to reach a certain community, or you have a product or a service that a community can, really rally around, it's amazing. And that's a super important part of creating something special.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still knee deep in the skate game, so for me, skating is, that's still, it's not like what have I learned from skating to take me into business. I mean, skating is my business still. So I actually sometimes
what do you
look to other people, other stuff to feed my skating.
What is skate? Okay, what do you think from being a skater and the lessons that we learn in it, what do you think the strongest quality that you can attribute to even your desire to become an actor, even your willingness to have things not work out, whether it's an investment failing or something, and still pushing forward? Where's the...
That's actually
I'm not answering
exactly
for you,
the point.
unfortunately.
Is you just in skateboarding you fail 95% of the time until you land it one time. I've learned all you need to do is land it once, and hopefully a camera's on. You know what I mean? And that's really the key in business, or even going in. The mentality that I'm approaching acting with is like, I'm not afraid of a no. It hurts less than falling. So a no is much easier to accept. I'm not afraid of that, because I know that progress is in the failures. So they're not actually ever failures until you accept them as so, and you give up completely.
Yeah, that's so true. That's something you talk about a lot that I really love. Because when I look back on like being a kid in Ohio, like just eating shit for 3 hours for what? Like to try to film a video for like a video that no one cares about? Like what am I doing? But like the mental fortitude, like I try to like make sure I have that somewhere in my life currently. Like what would I be willing to jump down 10 stairs for 3 hours for today? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I got to make sure I keep working on that, because like you really learn a lot.
To close it, what advice would you give to an 18-year-old just getting started when it came to viewing money? What's one piece of advice you could give them?
So I have two things. Number one is read those books and change your perspective on money, because it's probably wrong. And I'm not trying to attack anyone. Mine was wrong.
Mine was too.
All of us were wrong. Change your perspective and try to wrap your head around the idea of your money making you money. Like in my mind, I'm not financially successful until I live the life that I want to live, funded by my money, not by my work.
That's right.
When I am at that point, I am financially successful in my mind. And I'm not there yet for everyone to know.
You're financially free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, I really stuck when we were talking about the investing and the stuff like that, and raising money. And one of the things that you said was you went around to all your friends with St. Archer, you guys all did, and you tried to get people to invest in you. I just want to like go back to square one for everyone listening. There are people in this world that people will give money just because they believe in them so much. Mm-hmm. They're just the type of people that would do something good with your money. That's right. Then there's the type of people that you would never loan $10 to, because you know you'll never get it back. Be the type of person that someone wants to give money to. You can start that today without an idea. Right. You can not have an idea for a business, not have nothing. You can be the type of person that somebody trusts to give their money to, because they think it's better off in their hands than theirs. Become that person. Start being that person.
I love that. What about you?
So I have a simple one, which is understanding taxes, understanding what you owe when you earn, if you're not automatically getting tax taken out of your paycheck. First year I made over 6 figures, I was like, I feel rich. I was getting paid like a 1099. And I thought I could just like deal with the taxes later. I knew I'd have to pay taxes, but the reality was I didn't have the discipline to set aside enough for my tax payments. And I ended up getting in trouble with the IRS, having to get on a payment plan. And I thought I was so much smarter than that. Yeah. How could I get into tax trouble? Yeah. So that's like the obvious, don't get into tax trouble. And then beyond that, and this is another thing I've learned from Rob, think in post-tax dollars. Don't get caught up in how much you're gonna earn gross. Powerful. Don't even look at that number. Powerful. What are you gonna, yeah. What are you gonna do with your net tax number? And just get acclimated to that. Like the first number doesn't even really matter in your life. And and related to the tax understanding is a CPA. What professional do you have in your corner to deal with taxes?
Yeah.
And you know, still to this day, taxes is a thing that I'm happy that I support. You know, a lot of the things that are important in our country. I'm not complaining about it, but I definitely don't want taxes to be something that disrupts my life because I mishandled it.
Okay, I'm going to add to that. Everyone needs to read the book Tax-Free Wealth. It is so powerful. Just on you talking about changing the perception of how we look at money, not including how much money we have to give to taxes when you're making financial decisions is huge, and even how we look at taxes. And the big principle of this book is the government gives tax incentives because they're leading you down a path that will benefit the economy. So we look at it as we have to give taxes because that's our duty and we're called to give the highest amount. And if we find what we think are loopholes, then we're cheating the system. That's not how the tax code was created. The tax code was created by the government looking where can dollars benefit the economy and how can we steer people towards that direction, which leads to all of us keeping more of our money. So understanding the tax code, I think, adds on to both of those points. Yeah. Phenomenal, really phenomenal advice.
Yeah, I wanted not to overdo it here, but the other thing is like, for me, for the longest time, and I think a lot of people do this, money to me meant self-worth. Like that's why people buy, I mean, that's why the moment you get that first check, you go buy a watch, right? That's why Kanye was rapping about what he was rapping about on College Dropout, because it's validation, and it shows to you and to everyone around you that you are worthy of even having that money. And I've had jewelry and Rolls Royces and the whole thing. I didn't feel like I was more worthy of anything after, like I said, a month of that wearing off. You need to change your perspective that learning about money, which is what will give you more money, is like reading. Like, that's why it's financial literacy, right? And you don't look at people that can read and think they're fundamentally better people than you. But I think a lot of times we're threatened by rich people. And I think we kind of like, rich people are like, yeah, but you're evil. Money's the root of all evil, and I don't know, whatever. And all that is like a jealousy response to thinking that you don't deserve it. Yeah. Fundamentally, you think I'm not a rich person. And you have to change your perspective to like it's learning how to read. Like, learn it. Just learn it. And no matter if your income is, $20,000 a year or $20 million a year, you'll be able to leverage that to make more. If you just learn, take all that stigma out of it. Take that like self-worth bullshit all out of it, because it's just going to get in your way.
That's right. Yeah, it's huge. I'm glad you added on. Glad you went extra. That was good. What about you?
And to that point, I would tell an 18-year-old, learn to look at money not as something to show others what you are worth or how cool or important, whatever the hell it is. Learn to look at it as a tool for freedom. Learn to look at it as something that truly gives you freedom in life to move how you want to move and do what you want to do. And also I would tell them, usually the good advice is the advice you don't like. It's the not sexy advice. It's the long-term thinking for the future advice. When you hear people give you that type of advice and you feel in your stomach like, that's the advice you need to listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you made it this far in this video, you're on the fucking right track.
That's right.
And if you, on top of that, read the books we just told you to, you're going to be just fine.
Oh, you're doing it.
You're really in for the real, work of it.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys. I'm stoked to be going down this journey with all of you.
This is great. We can do this weekly if you want.
That's right. I appreciate it, guys.
Cigar chat.
That's right.
Thank you, man.